It's Ash from Super Videos, back for another Fear the Walking Dead video for Season 5. This is going to be a video looking at the character portraits that have been recently released for Fear the Walking Dead Season 5 characters. These came a little bit too late, I would say, because we're like 2 weeks already into Season 5, but at least we have some portrait shots to look at, and some of these are actually pretty interesting and cool to say the least. But with that said, let's jump right into this. First up, we have this shot of Althea. There's actually two portrait shots from different angles and with different poses, but for this particular one, we have Althea. The one on the right shows her weapon and her military style belt or vest that she has on, but the one to the left shows her a little bit more closely. Then we have this shot of Strand. Again, two shots, two different poses. However, this seems like it's the exact same pose, just zoomed in. But we have Strand with his unique gloves. We've seen him wear those gloves before, so it's a pretty cool shot of Strand. It would have been cool to see him carry some sort of weapon or hold some sort of weapon and pose with it. That would have been interesting, maybe just a gun. We've seen him holding a gun in the poster, I think. So they could have had him hold the gun, but it is what it is. Then we have this shot of Naomi, again, two different poses, but the one to the right, we can obviously see that she's holding a knife. There's really nothing to say. She looks pretty much the same she did in Season 4. Then we have this shot of Charlie, two different poses again. Now, there's nothing really interesting or unique to kind of bring up about the portrait shots for Charlie. She's not holding any weapons or anything like that, so there's really nothing to talk about there. Then we have this shot of the new character that was recently revealed to us in the last episode, actually, Grace, who's obviously the one that was going around trying to identify the nuclear walkers and try to basically kill them. Now, I thought that she left and that she's not going to come back, but because she got a portrait shot, that shows that she might actually come back into play somehow, and she might play an important role or a more important role going forward. But again, two different poses of her. Nothing really to talk about more than that. She is still a new character. We don't know much about her. So it's going to be interesting to see how much they're going to utilize her going forward. Then we have this shot of Lucy or Luciana, but she's obviously putting her knife back in the holster in the picture on the right. Then the picture on the left is just a zoomed in version of the same image, I would say. Maybe slightly different pose. Then we have this shot of Alicia. Now, the one to the right, we can see her signature weapon. So she still has that. She lost it, I think, in Season 4, but she has it back now. It's going to be interesting to see whether she sticks with this signature weapon or she's going to switch it around. But a pretty cool and interesting shot of Alicia. She looks pretty badass on the one to the right. Then we have this shot of John. Now, I was a little disappointed with this portrait shot of John, not only because both are identical. I mean, the other ones I was saying they're similar, but this one, it's like they just took the image on the right and zoomed in. It looks exactly the same. That's all I'm saying. It would have been interesting for him to pose just a little bit differently. But the other part of it is he has his gun in the holster. It would have been pretty dope or badass to have him pose with the gun. He's done that in portrait shots in previous seasons or the previous season that we had. But this season, the portrait shot, he's just standing there. So it's not really that exciting. It would have been more interesting to see him with a more exciting pose. At least hold his weapon up just to kind of showcase him with the gun. Then we have this shot of Morgan. He's standing with his bow staff. He has a knife with him as well. Pretty standard. It's just him with his bow staff. One thing that's very interesting is that it doesn't seem like he's going to get his bow staff back because it had radiation on it. He couldn't use it anymore. So it's going to be interesting to see whether he finds a new bow staff or what's going to happen there. The bow staff for Morgan has history there. That's why it's not just a weapon. It has a little bit of history, much like with Rick Grimes, it was the Colt Python. So it's kind of similar, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I hope it's not the end of the bow staff, because then that will be a little disappointing. But even if it's not the same exact bow staff, he could recreate another one for himself. Then we have these two portrait shots of Daniel Salazar. I absolutely freaking love these. He looks super badass in them. He has this military style coat, and he has like the rifle or shotgun that he had that we saw in the last episode with him as well. Now, the other thing that's very interesting to note is that if you look at his face on the left side, It obviously has the scar from when he was shot in the face by Strand. So that's something that's very interesting, and it's gonna basically stick with him as long as he's on the show. It's pretty much like the scar that Rosita Espinosa from The Walking Dead's original show has. If you remember, in the mid-season finale, I think, of season 7, Arat, one of the saviors, actually put a little cut on her face. And that's been basically with her ever since as a scar. And, you know, it's a similar kind of story with Daniel Salazar. So that's very interesting. Then we have this absolutely epic shot of Dwight, the crossover character. He looks absolutely fantastic in these two promo pictures. I absolutely love his poses and everything. And it's very, very interesting that he has this axe with him. It's like his signature weapon. It's actually pretty interesting and epic if you look at the similarities that Dwight in Season 5 has, or from what we can see, the similarities that Dwight in Season 5 has with Negan when he was first introduced. You know, he is presented as this kind of badass and intimidating guy, even though we know more about Dwight than we did from Negan when he was introduced in the TV show. Not looking at the comics, obviously, but also, aside from that, he has a signature weapon. In the TV show, it was Negan and Lucille, his barbed wire bat, but with Fear the Walking Dead is Dwight with his axe. So that's very interesting, and it's going to be very, very interesting to see what they do with Dwight in Season 5 and whether they make him a good guy or a bad guy and where his story goes. The other thing that's very, very interesting is he has this red scarf, much like Negan in the TV show when he was introduced. So it's very interesting. I think the similarities are very, very interesting and epic, to say the least. But again, I'm very, very excited to see what they do with Dwight coming up. The scar on his face, or the burn on his face, looks a little different from what we saw in the original show. Maybe it's been retouched. Maybe they've made it look a little bit more fresh, and they've kind of invested a little bit more time on the scar. Maybe just to begin, maybe after a little bit, they will continue having his burn look the exact same way as we saw it at the end of Season 8 when Dwight left. But it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with Dwight in general. And that's basically the final portrait shot that was released. Absolutely excited for Dwight to cross over in this coming episode and to see what they do with Dwight's story, and also to see what they're going to do with Daniel in this story now, and the new character Grace that's been introduced, and how everything is going to kind of come together, and what they're going to do from now until the mid-season finale, where most likely we're going to see a lot more Easter eggs or hints about the Rick movie connection, and obviously they're going to have the Dwight crossover. It's going to be very interesting. I'm interested to see what they're going to do. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm excited as much as I should be, only because history has shown us that Fear the Walking Dead cannot keep up the pace, or it does questionable things in a season that impacts the show's popularity and how excited fans are for the show. But with that said, I'm gonna be optimistic about the show and where it's gonna go. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video. If you like what you see, press like, subscribe for more content, and press the bell button to receive notifications for daily uploads.